What's up, buddies? For those of you who don't know me or don't recognize me, my name is David Lee Doan Jr., and my entire life I've been extremely proud to say that. I emphasize the junior every chance that I get, and for good reason. It's safe to say that most people who know the Doan family, David, Gina, David Lee, Corey, and even my brother Andy, would say that that family is something special. I've heard it multiple times from a variety of people, and they're all absolutely right. We are. Lucky you, Randy. Over the years, the Doan family has unfortunately dealt with the loss of many close loved ones, both friends and family members. And while the loss of loved ones is difficult for all, our family has been at the helm of coordinating so many memorial services in some way, shape, or form. Either my dad would bring the speakers and sound equipment, Corey and Mom would fundraise or communicate via social media. As for me, I've had the honor of being invited to speak at or present the eulogy at 6 memorial services. When I was young, I recall joining my parents, attending one of their friends, a relative of their friend who had passed away. And the person presenting that life story was a family member, and for obvious reasons was very emotional. So emotional that when presenting that life story, nobody was able to understand them. Nobody was able to register and understand just how special that person's life was. Since that day, I've always thought that if I'm needed, I'm always here to help and make sure that that story is heard and understood. This is one of the many ways I know I made my dad extremely proud. We even talked about the day where I would stand amongst a crowd of people at his funeral and come up with the perfect words to personify just how incredible he was. But today is actually not that day. Planning Dad's funeral during a pandemic was not in the game plan. But if there's one family that has to face the challenge and come out on the winning end, don't make no mistake, it's the Doans. The day will come where we're all able to gather, reminisce, and celebrate my dad in the way we all know he deserved. And on that day, I'll have a speech prepared that will be music to your ears, because that's exactly how my dad's life story would be. Today, my mom told me to write something personal, so yes, ma'am. My dad, wow. Where do I even begin? His personality, his community impact, his smile action. I think today I'll focus on what he was most proud of, his family. Mom, we all know how extremely lucky Dad was to lock you down. Although he loved to joke and say that he met you as a Class A groupie, we all know that from the moment you gave him a chance, he became your biggest groupie. Every love story is different, but yours has always been my favorite. You've continuously told us how you used to say that, oh, I'd marry a guy like David Doan. And that's something that I've always strived to replicate. And I think Corey did as well. I was my dad's mini-me, no doubt. But Corey is and always will be Daddy's girl. My dad would say yes to Corey for anything. Clothes, money, or just approval because Mom said no. But it wasn't because he was gullible by any means. It was because he was loving, protecting, and trusting. And wouldn't you know it, after having that kind of father-daughter relationship, Corey's going to end up marrying someone like David Doan, someone loving, protecting, and trusting. Perfect fit. As for me, I've had the honor of being raised by what I refer to as a real man. So, being that we're in a church, let me tell you all a little story about how a father raised a son to have that whole David Lee spirit. Simply put, my dad set the example. As I look behind me, I'm reminded of two things: the relationship between father and son, and the word sacrifice. All those days and nights DJing, emceeing, work at the photo booth, or simply just attending, my dad sacrificed his time and his energy. He did this because he believed in showing people the love and care that he felt for them. Lots of people can talk the talk, but my dad walked the walk. But it was more like a cha-cha. He believed in showing up and supporting people. 40 plus years of DJ, photo booth, band gigs, attending weddings, parties, all kinds of events, 15 years of Little League, community involvement. These are all life moments. Times that people will remember as the good times. And my dad pops up in a lot of people's good times. I've said it many times. I love hearing the phrase, "You're just like your dad." My voice and mannerisms, I get from my dad. My creativity and ear for music, I get from my dad. My loud, outspoken, and direct way of voicing my opinion, I most certainly get from my mom. Overall, so much of my character is from my dad. Even the two compliments I get most often from the ladies. Number one, my smile. I mean, it's in the blood. Number two, my smell. I stole my dad's cologne when I was a freshman in high school, and I never looked back, and the girls have not stopped talking about it. Also, like my dad, I've always had a romantic side and a deep passion for music. And after being engulfed with old school slow jams and love songs my entire life, I developed a goal in my head that I never really told anybody about, to find the one that I can picture in my head every time I hear those love songs. And now I realize how fitting it is that whenever I hear those songs, or music in general, I get to picture and feel my dad's presence. I know eventually I'll create my own love story, and that one will be my favorite. Then we'll birth a whole family of smiling children that are just like me, just like David Doan. My dad taught me how to care for a family, how to cook for a family, and how to do those same two things for a community of friends that you call family. And it's that same community of family and friends that have supported us through this extremely difficult time. I've been very touched by the kind words and hearing some stories. But the most touching story actually came from my mom. On their 10th wedding anniversary, they renewed their vows. Essentially, they had another wedding, one that Corey and I were able to be a part of. And my mom told me that during that time, although we didn't have much money, it was really important to my dad to hold this event, because it was important to him that his children, his family, and his friends all see and experience that a great marriage can happen and should be celebrated. Lots of people tend to live by the expression, "I don't care what other people think," but my dad was different. He deeply cared about what people thought, but he didn't force his opinions on anyone. He set the example. He cared about what people thought so much that he put in the effort, he took action, so that people would observe, understand, and make their own judgments. And in today's social climate, that's needed more than ever. My dad was a hero, or my hero, and dubbed a legend by so many. That's why in this time, in this moment, I'm going to harness my dad's bold voice and compare my dad to a legend. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. said that he dreamed of living in a nation where his children would be judged by the content of their character. And that's exactly how my dad judged people. First, he'd give you a smile. Second, he'd give you his time and a conversation. Then he made his judgment on your character. And look what happens when you just give people the time of day and actually listen to them. You end up with communities of friends that you call family. My dad was loved by all because he himself loved all. 3 weeks before he passed, I asked him, "Dad, I need some new Spotify music. Send me 3 names of 3 albums that you remember that stuck out to you when you were younger." After bothering him about it for about a week, I finally got that text, and this was the text. Number 1, Rick James, Come Get It. Number 2, Tower of Power, In the Slot. And number 3, Switch, self-titled album, The Essentials. This text brought me closer to my dad, to who he was, and how he was brought up. And it opened my eyes to something deeper. I hope that when people remember my dad, they realize that the content of his character was very colorful. And what better way to set the example of how we should all be living life right now? If you're not living a colorful life, then you're in a very dark place. But if you're willing to listen, life can certainly brighten up. And a great place to start listening could be music. Thank you, Mom, for marrying a man you knew deep down would set an example. Thank you, Sis, for being one of my best friends and my biggest critic, and for showing me how special a daughter can be to a dad. Thank you, Randy. When you came into the picture, I saw a change in my sister, and that inspired a change in me. Now your guys' love story is another one of my favorites. And I know that my dad was more than assured that his daughter is going to be well taken care of. Finally, in closing, thank you to everybody, anybody that's ever known my dad, because you helped mold the man, the myth, the legend. You helped mold the name of a father, his son, and their whole David Lee spirit. Love you, Dad.
Please stand. Let us pray.